Our theme this month is joy. And my topic today is how we choose to remember. How we choose to remember. I say every week that the spiritual qualities are not something that are outside of ourselves. They're not things to be acquired. It's the essence of who we are to be released, to be revealed. We experience the spiritual qualities not to the extent that we are able to manifest them, but to the extent that we are able to embody them. It's how much can we be it. The amount of love that you experience is not how much love you can bring into your life, but how much love can you express. How much love can come through you. The creativity is not how much creativity can you attract to you, but how much creativity flows through you. See? Your experience of it is how much comes through you. And it really doesn't matter how much you are surrounded by. You could be surrounded by beautiful music, but if you're in a funky mood and there's nothing within you that's connecting with the music, it will just sound like a bunch of noise. There can be joy and laughter that's all over. There could be a party all around you. But if there's nothing within you that's also rejoicing, that'll just get on your nerves. Yes? Yeah. It really isn't about how much comes to us, it's how much comes through us. That's what it's about. We're here talking about joy. And as I reminded us last week, let's not confuse joy with the state of happiness. Happiness, circumstance. We're happy when we like what's going on. That is not a prerequisite for joy. Your joy really isn't contingent upon what's going on. In fact, I contend that the greatest joy you will ever know is the joy that you experienced in the midst of being unhappy. Listen to what I just said. The greatest joy you will ever know is the joy that you experienced right in the midst of not being happy. Just let that soak in for a moment. There's a song that we sing, I'll probably sing it again today. We already sang it once this morning. We were praying in. This joy I have, the world didn't give it, and the world can't take it away. The world didn't give it, the world can't take it away. We have to choose the spiritual qualities. We have to choose to be it. This is very different than looking around and seeing if I have the right to experience it or if I should. Listen to what I just said. Do I have the right or should I? Sympathy is when we feel for someone. Empathy is when we feel what they're feeling. And a lot of times, particularly with this thing called joy, we ration it out. And sometimes out of our sympathy or empathy for other people or things that are going on, we don't allow our own selves to experience joy. Well, how can I be joyful? You know, my partner's got cancer. Well, how can I be joyful? Look what's happening in the news. Well, how can I be joyful? I might be losing my job. You know, how could I be joyful? So we not only choose to not be joyful because of what has happened, sometimes we choose not to be joyful in anticipation of what we think is or isn't going to happen. How can I be joyful? I don't know if I'm going to get my pension 5 years from now. It's a choice. It's a choice. This joy is a transcendent awareness. This joy is the remembrance that the stuff of this world doesn't have the last word. The joy is this conscious recognition that we are not our stuff, that there is more going on than just what meets the eye. How we choose to remember. Your experience isn't what happened. Your experience is your interpretation of what's happened. But we tend to think of experience sometimes as past tense, but it's very present tense. I'd like to make the distinction between what we refer to sometimes as our story and what I call our narrative. Our story is hindsight. It's our perception about what has already been. But just like in a real script, there's a narrator. And that narrator is very present tense. So what hangs us up is not just our story about what has been, but the narration that we give about what's going on now. And here's the thing about this narrative. Unlike the script, which becomes a photograph of the past, your narrative becomes the blueprint for your future. Listen to what I just said. Your story is your photograph of the past. Your narrative not only defines what's going on now, but your narrative creates the blueprint for your future. What you say about it now determines what's going to happen. We get to determine what stuff means. This thing happened, that thing didn't happen, i.e., therefore. So-and-so can't come for Christmas, i.e., therefore, that means. And I'm already determining what that means. How good it's going to be, how bad it's going to be. I'm already determining in January how I'm going to feel in December when so-and-so's not there. Listen to what I'm saying. I'm already deciding in January that I'm not going to be joy-filled in December because of what I think is or isn't going to happen. So I'm rehearsing that. I'm rehearsing that in my mind. I'm remembering the commitment that I made in January for how I'm going to feel in December. Anybody know what I'm talking about? This narrative. So here's the interesting thing about this narrative. You don't know what's going to happen in December. You don't know. Right? So if you're going to fill it in, why don't you fill it in with something that works for you? If you're going to be making stuff up anyway, why don't you make some stuff up that actually is going to be a benefit? Seriously. You say, well, you know, that's just a bunch of illusion. But is it any more illusion than what you're creating? What makes your negative narrative any more real than a positive one? Think about that for a moment. We get to choose. When you wake up in the morning, you get to decide the kind of day you're going to have. You don't get to choose everything that's going to happen that day, but you certainly get to choose whether you're going to feel good about the day or not. We are constantly making a choice. What do we choose to remember? So when we're looking back at what's already been, we get to determine what it means. This is the stuff of healing. This is the stuff of recovery. If you go to therapy, you join a 12-step program, you can't undo what's done. You can't unring the bell. You can't undrink those 20 years. You can't go drop back into that family you left. You can't go raise mama from the dead that died on you when you were 10 and you were pissed off. We can't undo those things. But what we do undo is what we think it means. That's what we undo. We undo how much that tells us about who we are, our potential, what the future is, our capacity. It is our duty, it is our responsibility as well as our privilege to go back and clean stuff up, to go back and get our interpretation more in alignment with spiritual truth. This is true of our personal life. This is also true of our collective life. And when I say back in truth, I'm not talking about sugarcoat stuff. In fact, there's something that's circulating now that's going viral, which I think is one of the bravest things I've ever seen. The New Orleans mayor, Mayor Mitch, I think his name is Landrieu, gave the speech of a lifetime. And there's about 90 seconds of it that somehow got edited out on the version that's going on most all over the place. But if you look at the version that's put out by TV station WWTV, W.W. Thomas Victor, you'll get the whole thing. He's now the current mayor of New Orleans. He used to be the lieutenant governor. His father used to be the mayor. His sister is in the Senate. They're very, very prominent white Southern family. Very recently, he took down the last 4 monuments to the Confederacy in New Orleans. But he gave a brilliant, brilliant expose about why it was necessary. And it was so incredibly brilliant. When I looked at it, I thought, now that's presidential. And it's interesting how anytime you see anything now, everybody's saying the same thing. Like, is this somebody to run for 2020? Because he just gets it in this global sense. And he said, I want to peel back your fingers a little bit. And he talked about the revisionist history that we've been doing and saying. And he just laid the facts out. When I say to be joy-filled, I'm not saying ignore the facts. What I am saying is face them and move beyond them. Face them, deal with them, and move on them. You can only move from where you are. So if you're in denial about where you are, you can't move. You can't get to the healing. Feel, deal, and heal. You can't get sober if you are denying that you got a drinking problem. You can't get to wholeness and integration as a society if you are ignoring our past. You can't get there. And as he was explaining, it's not to be punishing, it's to unleash our potential. It's to unleash our potential. Because when we are stuck in old stories, when we are stuck in old ways of looking at things that keep us glued to ideas that are restrictive or constrictive, even if we think it's for our benefit. Listen to what I'm saying. A lot of times, we stay attached because we think that's what's going to keep us on top, or that's what's going to keep me safe, or this way of doing it, or this way of viewing it is the only way that I can be protected. It's going to make me hedge against loss. It's going to put me ahead. It's going to make sure I'm not behind. Whatever that is. But God has more for you. The universe has more for you than what you can ever imagine. And the moment that you think you have reached the pinnacle, you've put your own ceiling on yourself. The moment that you are convinced that you have gone as far as you can go, or this can never get any better than what it is now, so I got to hold on to this because you know it'll never be as good as this again. You're putting a ceiling on God. You're cutting your own self off from possibility. Because there is always new ways that things can happen. There are new collaborations that can happen. There are new ways of expression that can happen. You have never seen the last. Ever. Ever. And you may say, well, isn't it true though? My body's getting old. Isn't it true though? My body will never be as strong as it was before. That may be. Things in the outer world, things in the outer form come and go. But I am talking about the essence. I am talking about strength. I watched my father exhibit more strength than I had ever seen him exhibit in his life as an invalid. Because the strength that it took him to keep living and to have the sense and the purpose of living. And I shared this a couple of months ago. I will never forget this as long as I live, when he sat there a couple of weeks before he passed away and started this litany. Well, you know, I can't really hear anymore. And I don't see that well. And I can't use my arms. I can't use my legs. I got a feeding tube. I can't even eat anymore. And he said, but I'm happy. I cried. He was 90 years old. And I'm not sure I'd ever heard him say that. Not just straight out, I am happy. Wow. Wow. And I know what he was talking about is the joy that I'm talking about. That's what he was talking about. So don't make these decisions now about how you are or aren't going to feel based upon the facts that you think are or are not going to happen. Well, if I don't have a partner, blah, blah, blah. Well, if I can't lose this weight, then I'll never have a partner. Then if I never have a partner, then I'm going to be lonely for the rest of my life. And if I'm going to be lonely for the rest of my life, then I'm going to die poor. And da-da-da-da. And if this, and then I don't have that, and then if then they do this, and if they come back after all these years, and that's just going to upset my life because I left them and they shouldn't be here anymore, and there's a reason why I divorced them, and I don't want my grown kids to get to know their daddy that left them, because he's going to try to get into the grandkids' life, and then the grandkids are going to act like the granddaddy that left and carry on all that BS from that family lineage that I don't want to be in their blood anyway. Out of love. I'm doing it because I love my grandchildren. Pick the script. It could be any one of them. Don't lose your joy. Do you hear what I'm saying? The only thing that is just wants to express through you. It doesn't care. I remember seeing this bumper sticker. It was a prayer. It said, God, make me the person my dog thinks I am. Your dog's closer to God. Your dog shares the same opinion that God does. God's just happy when you show up. God's just happy when you show up. God's just happy to take a walk with you. And to laugh and to jump and to play. There is nothing holding anything back from you. Breathe that in. There is nothing holding anything from you. There is nothing punishing you out there. There is nothing saying because this thing happened or that thing didn't happen that I'm going to give you less. That's not how it works. Love doesn't care. Love doesn't care. Love just wants to be loved. There is nothing that you can do that is so bad that love will stop showing up. It's just, will you let it? Will you let it? I'm talking about in your own personal home, or I'm talking about global. I switch between the macro and the micro a lot just to remind you that it isn't different. There's not another law of gravity for a tennis ball than a rocket ship. There's not different physics for different kinds of things. The same laws apply everywhere, equally to all people. Gravity doesn't care who it is. Music doesn't care who it is. Just, will you let it out? Will you let it out? I remember seeing this this special with this African-American comedian, Monique. Monique is raw. Okay, she be raw. And she went into a women's prison. I want to say in Indiana. I'm not exactly sure, but it was her first time in a prison. And the title of this show is, I Could Have Been Your Sally. I could have been your celly. And the stage is out on one of the yards, and it's like a cell, and she has on a prison uniform that she's kind of fluffed up a little bit. And she's doing it for the inmates on the yard. It is hysterical. And in this, check it out online. And in it, they have interviewed a number of women, and they bring their stories in. They cut in to these women's stories, and then they'll cut out to them in the audience. So you get this real sense of connection. And at one point, she asked, who can sing up in here? And everybody started pointing to this one particular person. And she said, come on up here. And this woman sang a hymn. And there was not a dry eye in the house. And Monique looked at her and said, baby, you get out of here, there's no reason for you to ever get back here. Because if God is giving you a voice like that, there is nothing that can stand in your way. I don't know why she was in prison. But you know what? Music didn't care. She didn't sing a pop song. I mean, she sang a good old hymnal. That hymnal didn't say, oh, well, I'm sacred music. You can't sing me up in a prison. And certainly not an inmate in a uniform. I'm too good for that. Listen to what I'm saying. I'm too good for that. You're not going to denigrate me like that. It's not what music said. Love doesn't say, how dare you, after how you treated me. Where were you when I wanted you? You think I'm going to show up for you now? I don't think so. Money's not going to say. Abundance, wealth, prosperity is not going to say. You used me and you abused me. You talk about me bad. Why you think I'm going to come to you? You busy telling everybody I'm evil. And you want some of this? Huh? I don't think so. It's not that kind of party. It's just not that kind of party. Whenever you show up, whenever you say yes, everything is right there willing to come through you. All of it. It doesn't matter what has happened or what hasn't happened. You show up. The joy you'll ever know is the joy that you let come through you. Most of us think that we're going to feel it when we get stuff. Giving and receiving are flip sides of the same coin. And if you aren't doing both, you won't feel the joy. It's like breathing. Breathing is inhaling, exhaling, inhaling, exhaling. We can look at it as a process of doing either or, but you're not breathing unless you're doing both. You're not breathing unless you're doing both. Unless it's coming to you, through you, a flow that's happening there. So if you want to experience, for example, the joy of abundance, that joy isn't going to come just when you accumulate a lot of stuff or people give you a lot of stuff, you will start to experience the joy of abundance when you start giving. When you give, there's a sense of something that opens up in you. You'll experience more of that joy of love, not just when people are loving all over you, but when you love back. That's when you will experience the joy. You will experience the joy of forgiveness, not when other people forgive you, because it doesn't matter how many people forgive you until you do. Yeah. Until you start forgiving. Then you'll experience the joy of it. But isn't it good news? There's nothing that's waiting. There's nothing that's stopping. Now, before I end, I might step on some ideological toes, so just breathe with me here. There's no devil. There's no devil. There aren't two gods. There's no devil that's manufacturing things and making things. The only evil you will ever know is the evil that comes out of human consciousness. There's no evil out there in nature. The only evil you will ever know is what human beings do when they don't remember there's only one. That's the only evil you ever know. It's dualistic thinking. Linguistically speaking, the word devil is not a separate entity. The word devil linguistically means deceiver. Listen to that. Deceiver. What does it mean to deceive? It's to get you all twisted up. It's to get you to start believing things that actually are not true. The deception takes you away from the truth. Are you with me? Every major religion will tell you, don't do it. Don't judge by the appearances. Maya, illusion, trickster energy. Things may look a certain way, but don't buy into that because there's more to it than that. Are you with me? So yes, there's way in which energy can manifest as deceptive, get you to try to pull away, and your ego is infamous for this. Because our ego wants to do protection. It wants to keep the status quo. Your ego isn't down with all this oneness thing. It's not. Because it gets afraid it's going to get lost in some kind of cosmic soup. Because the ego knows itself by contrast and comparison. I know I'm me because I'm not you. But if you start blurring these lines between you and me, where does that leave me? It's the crisis of inclusion. It really is. No. When you accept the fact that there is only one power and one presence, that's all that there is. Satan, the angel Lucifer, was not created out of some separate energy. Lucifer was an angel in heaven. The way the story goes, they got all puffed up with itself, deceived in the thinking it could make it on its own, for which it got cast out of heaven into hell. The moment you get deceived and think that you are not part of the one anymore, you get cast out of heaven into this thing called hell right here on earth. You don't have to live in hell. You don't have to live in hell. And you don't have to die to get in heaven. It's right here. It's right now. If you choose your joy. Choose the transcendent awareness. Choose to say, I don't care what's going on. It's the big and. Yeah, I messed up, and I'm still a powerful spiritual being. Yes, this thing happened, and I'm still prosperous. Yes, I have this diagnosis, and health is still in this body temple. Yeah, they walked on me, and God still loves me. It's in the end. It's where your joy is. Will you dare? Will you dare to live in that end? Will you dare to have the transcendent awareness? Because God just wants to express through you, that's all. God just wants playmates. God just wants a yes anywhere. For more music, for more joy, for more creativity, for more balance, for more order, for more right action. Will it be you? Why stand on the sidelines? Why stand in the soup line of life when it's a banquet? If you're eating crumbs, it's because that's all you will allow yourself to have. Not because the universe isn't giving you more. So you say, I deserve it. You're waiting for proof that you deserve it. The proof is you're alive. You're alive. I just watched a new baby come into the world. Taj Leahy and Serena just had a baby a couple of days ago. Yay, Amani Sol Leahy. £9 4 ounces. Yeah. Beautiful baby. Everybody's fine. What makes that baby deserve? Why does that baby deserve love or health care? It hasn't contributed anything. Why should that baby get a free ride? It hasn't done anything. Why does it deserve? Because he's alive. Because he is. Yes? Why do you deserve? At what age did it stop being just because you're alive? We're all children of God. We are all sons and daughters of the Most High. Yes? And we deserve just because we are. I want to do a shout out to Zelma up there, whose son recently passed away. Her mother not too long ago. And the voicemail on my voicemail said, Reverend Deborah, I'm all right. This is what I'm talking about. Does that get rid of a mother's grief? No. But she knows her son. And he was one of the most joy-filled people you ever wanted to see at Harbor High. And that's one way of continuing the legacy, is to live in that joy. Won't you pass that on to everybody? Let's pray.